Hi guys, Roishie here, and welcome to Imperial Grace, the demo. We are playing this game as part of the Choose Wisely festival that is running on Steam right now from the 8th to the 15th, so go and check out some of the awesome games on the show or search hashtag Choose Wisely Festival to watch participating content. In this visual novel game, we play as a strong, ambitious woman, holding an entire country in the palm of our hand. We fall under the charm of 3 love interests and their flamboyant personalities, and discover the kingdom of Calydia through colourful secondary characters. It is developed by Synstoria and published by Abiding Bridge, and is planned to release sometime 2026. Now, I'm sure as you can tell from the huskiness of my voice, that I am still not well. Does that mean that I am not going to give the characters voices? No. Does that mean that I may damage my voice further because I refuse to stop? Possibly. Is it worth it? You bet your ass it is. So, we're going to have a look at some quick settings here. I do apologize about my voice. I really tried to get better, but it just didn't want to. Anyway, we have two fabulous languages here in this demo. We have English and French. We have our display options here. I currently have it windowed. I was having some issues with some black flashing that was only occurring when I was recording in full screen. So unfortunately, I'm going to have it windowed. It's fine. We move on. There is a suggestive scene where we can choose to have it selected to fade to black if we want to. I'm going to have that checked on. We can remove the flash of light, which is advised for photosensitive or epileptic people. I'm going to leave this unchecked, but just be aware of that if you do have either of those issues. And I'm going to leave the shaky screen on. We have our volume settings, music, SFX, and UI. I'm going to leave that all the same. We also have a bunch of text options. We can change if we want to fast forward. I do not, as I have not played this yet. We can change text speed. We can set it to auto, which I do not like. We have default, simple, and dyslexic. Thank you, game devs, for giving us a dyslexic option. I have a lot of people who I know are dyslexic, and I understand how difficult it is. So this is mwah, chef's kiss. I'm going to keep it aligned to justified because I feel like it's justified. And I am going to put the text size up just a tad. You can also change the contrast of the text if you would like. I am going to leave it as is. We also have this little handy dandy extra option where we have a dressing, map and resources, gallery, which is unfortunately not available in the demo, and credits. We are going to look at that when we are done with this demo. Hopefully, I will get through the entirety of the demo today. It should be about 2 to 3 hours from what I was told. I will try my best. We'll see how we go with this broken throat canal of mine. Now with that, I'm going to stop yapping and we're just going to jump right in. Okay, here we go. New. This game is intended for a mature audience. It contains many themes that could offend the sensitivity of younger players. The complete list of trigger warnings is available in our store page. I am going to jump over and I'm going to grab that. I will put it both up on the screen and I will read it to you. This game is intended for a mature audience. It tackles several forms of fantasy violence common in medieval times: assassination, disease, war, sexism, etc. If you have issues with any of those things and you find them to be personally triggering to yourself, please do not watch this video. Thank you. You are going to play a demo version of the game. Thus, the content might be subject to change and some features may be missing, such as the diplomacy feature. Okay, I want some tips, please. Show me some tips. Click anywhere on the screen to progress in the story. Use your mouse wheel to go back, even after a choice. Thank God. Because I tend to double click and I miss things. You can fasten the text display in settings. We went over this. Several accessibility features are available in the options for your gaming comfort, especially if you're dyslexic, photosensitive, or epileptic, so don't hesitate to check the corresponding functions. I will once again say thank you, game devs. It's so important to make games accessible. You can check your resources from the extra menu at any time. Have fun! I want normal mode. Oh my god, you can have infinite resources. Now that sounds like something I should do because I am in fact an idiot. But we're just gonna go normal mode, I think. Ah! Okay. My first name is Roishie. Yay. Import? Civility. Okay, well, do I want to be blessed by Basan? You have loved fighting since you were a child. Hell fucking yeah, I have. Although you're not allowed on the battlefield, you're in excellent physical shape, and your swordsmanship rivals that of a man. I get a starting bonus in the army. Or I could be blessed by Amatera. When you were younger, you almost became a scholar. Your love of reading and learning has given you knowledge in many fields, including astronomy, theology, and botany. Okay, I'm not going to lie. That sounds like me. I read so much. Can you tell? Is it obvious? Blessed by Horrell, you have mastered the art of diplomacy and eloquence. Now, this is not me. You can improvise inspiring speeches in an instant, and you know the first names of every noble over 3 generations. No, hell no. And I'm blessed by Myriad. Numbers and resources management hold no secrets for you, and you have excellent relations with merchants, are good at mental arithmetic. No, I can't read analog clocks properly. I can, it takes me time. And I'm awful with directions. I've lived in this house that I'm in for 5 years, and if anybody asks me in which direction anything is, I can't tell them. So I think we're gonna go with Amatera, because this is more like me. I'm great with English. Well, I'll retract that statement. I'll retract that. All right, we can do some. I am light. I am in fact probably the lightest of lights. I don't have freckles, but I do draw them on sometimes because I wish I had freckles. I don't have freckles on my face. I have them like everywhere else. I like those ones. That's nice. Okay, the hair type contrary to the hairstyle cannot be modified during the game and will be taken into account during illustrations. Okay, I understand. I do have wavy hair. God, this is such a cool game. Whoa. I didn't mean to do that. My bad. But we are going to save it. Roishie. This game is so cool already. Can we go back? Yes, I want to go back. I want to see what the hair types are for straight. Because I would say my hair is more straight than wavy. Look how gorgeous this hair. Firstly, I'm not going to use this at all because I'm trying to make me. But look how gorgeous that is. Stunning. Oh, I had a D&D character who had hair like this. Oh, her name was Winnie, and she was a halfling monk, and she was way of the Jasmine Master. So she was a tea monk. So she would brew tea and drink them before battles and like give them to her allies and stuff. And I was obsessed with her. She was a mother of 6, and she had an Irish accent that I was terrible at, probably. Such a gorgeous hair. I have been envious of curly hair my entire life, and my hair is not this wavy, so I think we're just gonna have to go straight and just be depressed about it. Yes, I like this one. My hair is straight at the top and gets wavy at the bottom. It's depressing. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Well, we're gonna change that again. Freckles, beauty mark. I didn't mean to go back that time. Straight hair, this one. Is it gonna be white? Okay. Because I don't see a way to change the hair color. Am I stupid? Possibly. Or maybe it's here. I do have blue eyes. I'm not seeing a way to change the hair, so I guess my hair's just white, but I'm also not complaining because do I love a character with white hair? My last 2 D&D characters, completely by accident, have both had like white hair. I'm currently playing a character called Valerian, and he's a drow Dampier because I'm so original, with white hair. And then Winnie's hair was this color as well. Before that, I had pale pink hair, so, you know, I was playing a Furbolg then. I miss my characters. Anyway, we're gonna confirm because I don't see a way to change the hair color, but we like this hair color. It's fine. Ooh, customizations on this screen will not be reflected in the illustrations. Oh, the match option adapts your outfit to the illustration, not the other way around. To change your outfit during the game, click on extra outfit. Oh my god! Switch outfit to match the illustration. At the start of a scene that has an illustration, the game will automatically switch your outfit, hairstyle, etc. to match the one used in the illustration, as we don't have the means to make every variation. I want to just be casual, it's fine. Actually, can I go back? I want to see what... Yeah, I'll have my hair up at night. Actually, do this with the braid. With the braid, confirm. This one, I'd love my hair to be like up and fancy. Yes, queen. Okay, and then fighting, yeah, well. Maybe formal should be this one. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm a bit confused about that, but that's okay. I can change it, I guess, after. Prologue! Your Grace! Your Grace! A panicked voice resonated in my dream like an echo, a few moments before I understood that it came from somewhere else, and woke up with a jolt, disoriented. Jesus, I'm off to a solid start. I'm so sorry, guys. The palpable feeling of urgency had immediately brought me to my senses, but it still took me a few seconds to recognize the advisor's voice, as well as the room I was in. Alden? What's going on? Your Highness, I bring terrible news. Your father was assassinated last night. I was ready to hear just about anything. Managing crises was an important part of royalty, after all, and yet I was completely stunned by the news. My father was dead, at the hands of an assassin, just a few rooms away from me. All the implications from this revelation bounced through my head, drenched in doubt and fear concerning my own security and the future of the realm of Kalidia. I kind of want to say it fancy like that. Who's this guy? I beg your pardon, Your Highness. I was too late. Pulling myself out of my lethargy, I looked down on Alexander, who knelt next to the bed, his head bent low, as if the weight of his shame stopped him from getting up. Whatever went down, I knew he had nothing to be ashamed of. When I was just a child, I already admired his talents, and they grew steadfast with age and the position of general. His presence here was a relief. I didn't know the assassin's full intentions, but even if they were after me, as long as Alexander was by my side, I didn't have anything to worry about. Don't put yourself down like this. You aren't responsible for what happened. We'll bring the regicide to justice. Who the hell's talking to me? Still mortified, Alexander stayed on his knees. I could see his fingers twitch a little, proof he wasn't completely convinced, but he nodded his approval all the same, transported by the firmness of my voice. I guess it's me talking. As for me, now that I had said it out loud, I felt that the situation had settled in my mind, and I finally accepted it as truth, with a full understanding of the situation. My father, Magnus V, Emperor of Kalidia, Kalidia sounds better, was dead. Apologies. I don't actually know how to say it. Many would have broken down after hearing such news, but for years now I hadn't held an ounce of affection for him. His death was actually good news to me. Good news, everyone! It marked the beginning of a new era, a better one, I hoped. An era for which I'd been preparing ever since I realized that this was my destiny. I was to succeed him. I was to become the Empress. She looked so happy about that. But it wasn't yet time for celebration. Although I was the legitimate heir to the throne, I had plenty of detractors, and I still needed to figure out why the assassination had taken place. I had many questions about the killer's identity and motivations. I was lost in thought, and it took me a while to realize that Alden and Alexander were staring at me, worried, surely awaiting a reaction or a declaration from me. Both had known me since my childhood. They knew the enmity I felt for the Emperor, and I trusted them enough to set all pretenses aside. But it was perhaps a bit inappropriate to rejoice over my future title while my father's dead corpse was still warm. After taking a breath, a deep one at that, I threw off my covers and got up, eyeing them. I'm going to state neutral. Gloating seemed a tad indecent, but I could at least spare myself the pretense of being the grieving orphan that I would surely need to be in front of the court. What I feel isn't important. You don't have to worry about me. What matters most is our nation, and we all know that the sudden death of an emperor is a delicate situation. I guess my name is Lydia de Terrenfell. At the moment, the most important thing is to preserve the kingdom's stability. I'm counting on you to protect and serve me. This won't be an easy task, but I'm sure we can accomplish great things. This time Alexander got up, putting his hand on his sheath in a dignified and military posture. At your service, Highness. May the four witness my oath. I solemnly swear that I'll protect you until my dying breath. Emphatic, he bowed down before lifting his eyes up to me. I smiled and accepted his allegiance with a certain poise, despite my unkempt hair and my nightgown. My hair is perfect. Marjorie, my tutor, often told me that everything about me showed nobility, that I didn't need any props to act like an empress. Today I understood what she had meant. Alden, however, didn't seem to share the general's fervour. Forgive me, your majesty, for tarnishing your enthusiasm, but there is a very delicate question that I have to ask. Have you had your father killed? His abrupt question threw me off, and I stared at him, wavering between surprise and indignation. How dare you even suggest such a possibility? You're going too far, advisor. Come on, don't be offended. You said it yourself. You've hated your father since the death of your brother. You've always held him responsible for it. And your father dies on the very day of your return to the palace. Whatever your answer is, I'll accept it. But I need to know. I felt anger rise within me at these words, and I walked to the window to breathe some fresh air. After I took a few deep inhales, I finally turned around to face and gave him my answer in a firm voice. On the one hand, my presence here isn't a coincidence. The Empress celebrates, or rather was about to celebrate, his birthday in 2 days. Half of the Empire's noblemen are here. It's undeniable that the event presented the perfect opportunity to strike. The palace is swarming with unknown guards and servants. It's much harder to provide security in these circumstances. Exactly. On the other hand, your suspicions are an insult to my intelligence advisor. After a regicide, the heir is always suspected. If I had really wanted to speed up fate, you better believe I would have been smarter about it. Marjorie taught me the rules of the game. I would never risk losing everything in such a foolish way. I know my ascension to the throne will already be difficult because I'm a woman. I'll state it plainly if it can relieve your doubts, but listen closely because I will not repeat myself. No, I did not have my father assassinated. My eyes trained on him, I crossed my arms, almost daring him to contradict me as I kept a lid on my fury. Alden seemed to gauge me for a moment, then nodded in assent and apology. Please forgive me, Your Grace. As soon as possible, I'll alert the Master of Murmurs, and will launch an investigation to uncover the truth and bring justice to your father. I would have preferred more vivid regrets, but under the circumstances this was enough, and I felt my anger slowly fade away. I accept your apology. Let's not speak of this again. There are more urgent things to do. The news will, no doubt, make quite a commotion. I love that I don't know if y'all are committed to a bit like I am, but I'm committed to the bit where every character that I am embodying in this game, or in any game, they will be Australian. They will just be me. But it does make me laugh when I make every other character British or American, and I'm like, damn, I'm just an Aussie, like living my life out here, you know? You've asked us to swear allegiance to you. I assume you will try to claim your rightful place as heir, Your Grace. Yes, it's my destiny. I heaved a deep sigh and mustered all my determination to answer him without leaving any doubts as to my intentions. I realized a while ago that this was my destiny. Whether I like it or not, I don't really have a choice, and I'm not one to do things half-heartedly. I know there aren't many people in the direct line of succession, but if you truly don't want to, I believe one of your bastard brothers would do the trick. You know full well that my cousins would covet the position. This would mean the start of a succession war that would drown the kingdom in fire and blood. Even if by some miracle the nobility came out in favour of one of my half-brothers, there's no guarantee that it would all go well. They know nothing of politics. They'd be nothing more than puppets, or even worse, incompetents. By birth I have a responsibility to the people of this country, and I don't intend to shirk it. In any case, even if I were to retire to my estate to manage it, I would still be a potential threat to their reign. I'll never be safe, even if I were to completely relinquish my right to the throne. There's no doubt about it. I have to be the next Empress. Only time will tell, but I think I'm the best possible choice under the circumstances. I don't doubt that, Your Grace. In fact, I'm rather relieved to see you've already thought about it. Like you said, our country needs stability. We can't get away with a weak-willed monarch on the throne. I'm sure you'll be a wonderful Empress, Lydia. His words were barely a whisper, but I was sure of what I had heard, and I felt my cheeks redden a little. My cheeks are reddening. He seemed embarrassed by his own boldness, and blushed more violently than me. While I flashed him a smile to reassure him. Here, look at my titties. Sorry. Do you ever just say stuff and then immediately regret it, but know that you're totally not going to edit that out later? You're just going to leave it in. Me. It had been years since I had last heard him call me by my name. Even if I had no doubts about my own abilities, it was always refreshing to see the trust he gave me. I cleared my throat and regained my composure so I could give my orders. This would be a long night. Who else knows about the assassination for now? Alexander seemed surprised by my question and frowned a bit while searching his mind. When I found the body, I immediately went to warn the advisor, and both of us rushed to see you. Who's with the fucking body? The only ones who know about it are the guards who were patrolling with me, and your father's personal maid who was passing by. Oh, the guards, I assume. We knew it would be bad to attract attention, so I had her discreetly sent to the dungeon for interrogation. Jesus. How about the guards who were stationed before my father's door? Both are dead. Oh! Never mind, I guess there's no guards. I also had their corpses taken to the dungeon for examination. I paced the room, lost deep in thought. You've done well. Now we have to keep it all secret. It's imperative that no one else hears about it. Your Grace. This won't be an easy secret to keep. Obviously, we won't be able to do that forever. I only need a few days so I can stay ahead of my detractors. Alden looked thoughtful for a few moments. Then he nodded. I see. So you want to act before everyone else, which should give you the upper hand. Exactly. Very smart. I have no doubt that some people will want to take advantage of your situation. Even if you are unquestionably the rightful heir, your place will be fought over. But if you don't give them time to react, that could make things a great deal easier. That's what I was thinking too. I'd love it if the situation was more straightforward, but this is a little white lie, and the alternative is the chaos of a wildly disputed succession. Alden nodded, and I continued developing the rest of my plan. In the meantime, pretend that His Majesty is not feeling well, and investigate discreetly. I see. I'll order my men to stay silent. I'll also ensure that they haven't said a word so far. About that, it might be wiser to ensure that they can't talk at all. Low-grade staff is known for its gossiping, even the guards. My men are trustworthy. They would never disobey. Would you be willing to bet on that? If it could jeopardize the plans of your new Empress, to whom you have only just sworn allegiance. And that maid, can you also guarantee she'll keep quiet? His teeth clenched, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword. Oh, I like that. The little comic book cutout. Alexander shook his head. The weight of Alden's words had also fallen heavily on my shoulders, and I observed both men while contemplating my next steps. This decision is yours to make, Your Grace, but I strongly advise you to silence them for good. Alden was right. The most effective way to ensure someone stayed quiet was to have them killed. However, there could be other alternatives to consider. Such a decision couldn't be taken lightly because whatever I decided, I couldn't afford to regret it. I'm not fucking killing people. Ensure their loyalty by promising them a much better position once I'm crowned. Even if they were really tempted to talk about what happened, this should be a good enough motivation to ensure their allegiance. I saw Alexander sigh in relief and imperceptibly loosen up. Alden, however, shrugged and bowed to me. That could work, yes. Time will tell. I have faith. Besides, if I'm right, I'll be surrounded by trustworthy people, which is always useful. I had spoken with determination, perfectly hiding my own doubts. Humans are unpredictable in nature. It was a bet, and I could only hope it would pay off. In any case, even if the servants talked and the rumor escaped, I still had my chances. The advantage I was building would be precious to me, but it wasn't the only weapon in my arsenal. Can I count on you, Alexander? He straightened into a military stance and immediately bowed. Of course, Your Grace. I will do my best to convince them. You've made the right decision. Without further ado, he bowed once more and left the room with a heavy step. Alden seemed to be lost in thought for a moment, giving me time to come to my senses before he bowed down in turn. I must at least inform the Master of Murmurs of the situation, so that we may launch an investigation. I nodded, aware of our lead spy's discretion as well as his efficiency. Once that is done, I'll come to you to plan the rest of your ascent. Once more, I nodded in approval, glad to be offered a little interlude that would allow me to gather my thoughts, and to dress decently while I was at it. After all, even if the coronation hadn't taken place yet, deep within me, I knew it. I felt it. I was the Empress. Oh, Chapter 1, Lonely the Empress. My voice is struggling. Spring, day 8 morning. The sun had now been up for a few hours, promising a beautiful day, but I knew I wouldn't be able to appreciate it. Look at me, I'm so pretty. Now that the rush of adrenaline from the news had passed, all I had left were doubts on the days to come, which were going to be exhilarating as much as terrifying. I was gambling my future, along with Caladia's, and that was a big deal. I had spent the past few hours readying myself and refining the details of my plan to appease my latent nervousness as best I could, but that didn't help me shake off my main preoccupation, the servants. Like Alden had said, I had made a risky decision, and I had been torturing myself for hours wondering if it was worth it. I was restless when I heard the knock, and leapt to the door, opening it for Alden and letting him in. There, Your Grace, we have followed your orders. Oh. I hadn't seen that he was accompanied by the Master of Murmurs, who came in after him. A slight discomfort washed over me. His role inside the palace was vital, but since I was a child, I had been terrified of his hidden face, and the mysterious aura that surrounded him. Hello. Nevertheless, my discomfort turned into amazement when I saw him remove his hood as if it were nothing and turn to face me. My brain had pictured the worst for years, and it was very unsettling to finally be able to put a face to that man. I realized he wasn't as monstrous as I'd imagined. In fact, I was so shocked that it made me forget the reason for my visitor's presence, which seemed to greatly amuse the Master of Murmurs. Is there a problem, Your Grace? Oh, it's just that I didn't know that you were so sexy, that you were so hot, that you could show your face. To be honest, I do what I want, but in principle, I only remove my hood in the presence of my sovereign and their close collaborators. Though I like to entertain the mystery and anonymity that come with the job, it would be far too dangerous for me never to reveal my face. Some people might use that to usurp my identity. I see. Though it was disconcerting, it was also rather reassuring to see that a man as important as the Master of Murmurs already acknowledged me as his sovereign. Alden cleared his throat to recall me to my duty, and I suddenly remembered the reason for the two men's presence, which immediately made my anxiety flare up. To keep myself from staring at the Master Spy, I faced the advisor and fully focused on him. Did everything go well? My anxiety must have been conspicuous, even if I was doing my best to put on a confident expression. The servants seemed convinced by your offer. They left the palace without complaining, so I suppose we can count that as a win. Despite all that, it's still a bit early to be sure of anything. I gave the Master of Murmurs and Alexander the task of keeping a close eye on the situation. The Master of Murmurs slowly nodded in assent. We'll know more tomorrow. But for the time being, there's nothing more to report. I lifted my eyes to meet my advisors and flashed Alden a reassuring smile. Clearly he read my emotions better than I had thought, and I couldn't allow myself to visibly waver at such a critical time. I know that, and what's done is done. Now we must focus on the future. Bring the High Priest to the council room. I need him to contact the Quadrator. Robert is a pious man. Are you sure it's a good idea to confide in him? Everyone likes to think the devout never lie, but one doesn't obtain a place like his without cheating a little. I admit that the idea of lying to him came to me for a fleeting moment, but to fool him would be a complex task, and I'll be needing his support when the time comes. The people put great stock in men of faith. Very well, Your Majesty. Will that be all? Yes, thank you. Afternoon, tea time. Speaking of which, I may have to take a break to make some tea. Oh. You summoned me, Your Grace? Yes, thank you for coming, Robert. I gestured for him to sit down while I settled behind my father's imposing desk. Like I had predicted, my behavior made him lift a curious brow, but I pretended not to notice it. I won't beat around the bush. My father, the Emperor, died during the night. Clearly we had done a pretty good job at keeping that a secret, since the shock on his face seemed genuine. What? But how? And why am I just learning about it now? I need to pray for his soul. I tried to appease him with a wave of my hand, inviting him to sit back down since he looked like he was about to get up. He was murdered. For the time being, we're keeping his death a secret, so we can investigate without causing any sort of panic. It was the Master of Murmurs' idea. He's convinced he'll be able to find the assassin more easily this way. Drowning in information, the High Priest slumped into his chair and took in my half-truths, while I assumed a saddened expression. It truly is a tragic situation. Keeping quiet and hiding my mourning is a very hard task for me. I know it's a lot to ask of you, but you need to keep this a secret. I want to do everything in my power to uncover the murderer, especially since I'm scared he could come after me. Once more, I was quite proud of the quivers in my voice, and my acting seemed to be effective since I saw a spark of compassion light up in his eyes. I understand now why the general was guarding your door like a common soldier. With a closed expression on my face, I nodded, searching for the right words. The first and main reason I've summoned you here is so that I could confide in you and ask you to pray for my departed father's soul. Of course, Your Majesty. I'll lock myself up in the great temple and dedicate myself to the task. My face still sad, I gave him a tight, grateful smile, but inside I felt relieved. His prayers should keep him busy enough that he wouldn't be tempted to reveal everything. Now I could move on to the true reason of his presence here. But before that, this saddens me, but I have another favour to ask of you. Of course, Your Grace. What is it? Well, Alden and I are afraid that all the upstarts across the kingdom will rush to the castle and try to usurp the throne as soon as my father's death is made public. In their greed, many forget that my line sits on the throne by the grace of the Four. Okay. So I'd like to send a letter to the Quadrator and have him support my coronation as well as reaffirm my legitimacy. I wonder what the Four is. Is that the Four Gods? Because that's hilarious. Because that's also what my four main gods are called in my D&D campaign. Anyway. Once more, he stayed silent, and I tried to hide my worry behind a veil of sadness. I hated that my plans depended on a single person, but I didn't have a choice. Only rulers and high priests could hope to quickly reach the ultimate leader of the cardinals, and I technically wasn't Empress yet. I understand, yes. You're Magnus V's only legitimate child. The throne should be yours. That said, I don't know if the Quadrator will approve of your advent. Perhaps if you were married, your candidacy would seem less inappropriate. I felt my body tense up at his words, and it took all I had to conceal how irritated I was by this reminder. I knew I would be told such things. I had mentally prepared myself for it, but obviously it hadn't been enough. It's an issue, yes, and I'll do my best to find a fitting husband quickly, but you'll agree that I cannot entrust the throne of Chaldea to just anyone. I have plenty of suitors, but I need some time to study each and every one of them. That's not something that can be done in just a couple of days, or even weeks. In the meantime, we do need someone to lead the country and make sure it doesn't sink into chaos, and if a regent were to be appointed, I'm afraid he might refuse to give the throne back to me and my husband, which would lead the whole country to a bloodbath. No one wants to see another era of murderous plots, like during Magnus III's time. You're right, Your Grace. We cannot let such a tragedy befall us. I'll go write a letter to the Quadrator right away to express support for your coronation and explain our situation. Satisfied, I let out a sigh of relief. I thank you for your support, High Priest Robert. It means a lot to me. Swiftly, I opened one of the desk drawers and pulled out a thin, sealed letter. While I was waiting for you, I humbly wrote a few words destined for the Quadrator. We've never met, and I hope this would help him get to know me a little, as well as reassure him of my faith in the Four. I was thinking that perhaps you would be so kind as to add it to your own correspondence. Once more he seemed to be caught off guard, but he smiled instantly and enthusiastically. Of course, Your Majesty. It's a great idea. Relieved, I gave him the letter in question, while thanking him once more for his support and his help in these unprecedented times. I only hoped he didn't have the audacity to break the seal, because even if it did contain a few cliches on my virtues, the letter mostly made promises that could actually motivate the Quadrator. I don't actually know what I have. Oh, I have 10. Okay, even if he was a considerable asset to our army, I had promised that once I'd been made Empress, I would free him from his oath so he could go back to Meridian. Do money. To play with a man as powerful as the Quadrator, and I wasn't talking about his possible connection to the gods, but his actual worldly power, was a risky move, but it was all worth it. The dice had been cast. I could only hope for things to go well, and prepare the field for my conquest of the Chaldean nobility. I need a spring, day 8, evening. Despite my desire to act, for the time being I couldn't do anything but wait for the Quadrator's answer. Even if the letter had left that very morning, Meridian was far away, and I knew I couldn't hope for an answer for at least 3 days. I had to chomp at the bit and act naive. My first thought was to mingle with the court so I could clear my head, but then, pretending that nothing was up and feeding rumours to justify my father's absence was more frustrating than doing nothing. Even Marjorie's presence irritated me. Despite her advanced age, as soon as she turned her inquisitive eyes onto me, I had the impression she managed to perceive the truth. and so I had taken refuge in the library, hoping to read a little bit. But in all honesty, even if I managed to unscramble a few words, my thoughts were far away, and my mind was replaying the events of the previous night, asking myself again and again if I had done the right thing. "Oh, Your Grace." As if he suddenly realized where we were, the Master of Murmurs repeated his interjection in a lower, albeit just as zealous tone. "Your Grace, we have an urgent problem on our hands." This preamble was enough to make me abandon my boring reading, and I put down my book, ensuring okay, first of all, why did it have to be boring reading? Ensuring there weren't any indiscreet ears in the library before I invited him to continue. After he also made sure no one else was around, he pulled back his hood and resumed his explanations. "As you know, I've asked to keep an eye on the 3 people aware of your father's death. However, barely 24 hours have passed, and I have been told that the maid immediately went to a noble, the Baron Torben of Levallois, instead of leaving town." Levallois? Okay. "I conducted an investigation, and I'm almost positive the two are in a relationship. I've interrogated her colleagues, who confirm that she's had a rich benefactor for a few months already, and everything hints at his name." I didn't really care about my servant's romantic endeavors, but I wanted to know where he was going with this. "Are you afraid she'll speak?" "Yes, and I'm afraid the Baron will want to use that information to glean more power." "Is he trying to blackmail us?" No, we've had nothing of the sort. But tonight he's holding a party to which half of the nobles currently in the capital are invited. That cannot be a coincidence. No event justifies for such a party to be improvised. It's improper. I admit the situation is very odd, but do we have any proof? Unfortunately, no, Majesty. Only suspicions. I took in a few deep breaths while I pondered the situation and calculated the risks. If these allegations happened to be true, I would be stuck between a rock and a hard place. Not only would my plan to gain time fail utterly, but everyone would know of my deception. Moreover, if she didn't speak, now that I knew of this maid's allegiance, I wasn't sure it was a good idea to give her a better position down the line that would give her more opportunities to spy on me for the Baron. What are our options? There aren't many, Majesty. Either we do nothing and wait to see what happens while preparing to counteract possible rumours, or we have them both assassinated to eliminate any risk of leaks. But the Baron is an influential man. There are far fewer chances of his death passing unnoticed than that of a simple servant. Tired, I massaged my temples to help me think about the best course of action in this situation. Death was most definitely the best way to stop someone from talking, but the reason I wanted to avoid such methods in the first place was because they disgusted me, and they could well have unwelcome repercussions for me. Would allying myself with the Baron be a possibility? It's true that this information will give him power, but not as much as having an Empress owe him a favour. I think it could work, but do you really want to start your rule indebted to such an ambitious man? That was indeed the risk. I could always double-cross him once the danger had passed, but that would undeniably have after effects. Do we have an idea of what he wants? I'd like to know what I'm getting myself into. If I had a few days, I would have been able to tell you, but I can't answer you in time for the party. Sighing once more, I closed my eyes to better contemplate my options. Alright. Okay, I can wait to see what happens. Murdered. How much of this? I have 8. Free. Fuck. I'm gonna save. Actually. We're gonna just see. I made this choice. An audacious choice, I must admit. I'm a little surprised. I didn't expect you to be the kind of woman who'd put her fate in the hands of the 4. But if that is what you want, so be it. I will inform Alden of your decision. Slowly I nodded, while telling myself that indeed a few prayers to Horrell wouldn't be a bad idea under the circumstances. Yes, he's the most qualified for this kind of speech. He needs to be prepared to defend us against rumours, if your suspicions prove correct. I will let you know once I have more news. I will send a spy there, which should allow us to stay ahead of our detractors by a few hours. Thank you. I'm counting on you. The Master of Murmurs gave me an elegant bow and departed, leaving me alone once more. With doubts gnawing at my mind, I waited for the end of the day with more nervousness than usual, unable to concentrate, fearing the arrival of the Master of Murmurs as much as I hoped for it. Nighttime. Daytime. It was already late when the Master of Murmurs knocked on my door to inform me of the evolution of the situation. Although it was late at night, I hadn't managed to close my eyes at all, and I awaited the outcome with anxiety, despite the detachment that I had wanted to display earlier that day. Your Grace. As soon as I heard his tone of voice, I understood the news wasn't going to be great, and I closed my eyes so I could withstand them while remaining dignified. We were right. The Baron discovered everything and revealed it all. The court is incensed, outraged that we've hidden the truth from them, and rumours of your implication in the assassination abound. That Robert was kept in the loop should play in our favour, but I won't lie, the situation is quite complex. Alden is preparing a speech for tomorrow. The next few days are going to be crucial. I understand. Thank you for keeping me informed. Shaking, I nevertheless waited for him to leave, so that I could crumble down on my bed and take a few deep breaths. I only knew one thing. This wasn't going to be easy. Shit. Game over? Game over? The weight of secrets? Put in a precarious situation by the sudden death of her father, Empress Magnus V, Princess Lydia tries to keep the news hidden long enough to gather the political support she needs, but her attempt fails, and a large part of the nobility distances itself from her and denounces her machinations. A new candidate is soon brought against her, one of the Emperor's illegitimate sons, become Count after some maneuvering from the Virar family. Virar. This marks the start of an internecine conflict, which limits itself to court plotting and never turns into a fully fledged civil war. 2 months later, the Quadrator breaks the stalemate by deciding in favor of Yassine after being bribed by the Vaudois, who oppose a woman being made head of the realm. Forced to renounce the throne, Lydia retires to her duchy, hoping to rule it in peace. But a few months after the coronation of a political opponent, she is assassinated in what appears to be a bandit attack. Alexander de Fur, who had left his functions earlier in order to protect his friend, dies at her side. Oh, go back to the previous choice, please. I guess we're not doing that one. Okay. I think we need to get him on our side then. I'd like to share your optimism, Your Grace, but the Baron of Levallois never seemed a reasonable man to me. Well, in any case, I bend to your will, since Advisor Alden is more adept at this sort of negotiations. I will inform him and let him lead the discussions. Nevertheless, I'll stay at the ready in case the Baron refuses to listen to reason. Very well, I'm counting on you. The Master of Murmurs gave me an elegant bow and departed, leaving me alone once more. With doubts gnawing at my mind, I awaited for the end of the day with more nervousness than usual, unable to concentrate, fearing the arrival of the Master of Murmurs as much as I hoped for it. Yes. It was already late when Alden knocked on my door to inform me of the evolution of the situation. I was convinced a man like the Baron would be in favour of some arrangement, but there were so many things that could go wrong. Your Grace, I've spoken to the Baron of Levallois, who turned out to be quite stingy with his information. To my greatest shame, I'm unable to tell you what he knows exactly. He's remained very vague on the subject, but he clearly hinted at having information that could harm you. I did as you wished, and suggested that if he supports your ascension to the throne, he'll have your eternal gratitude. He accepted in principle, but he seemed to doubt that you intend to uphold your side of the bargain. He's asking for a guarantee. A guarantee? Alden nodded with a sigh. He wants a document written and signed by your hand to make this alliance official. I couldn't blame him for doubting my honour. After all, I considered breaking my promise if the price to pay for upholding it was too high, but what he asked me was impossible. I can't do that. That would mean admitting to my schemes. At the moment, all he's got is the word of a servant and no proof that I am directly involved. I won't hand it to him on a silver platter. I wholeheartedly agree with you, but those are his terms. Exasperated, I took in a deep breath before grabbing a sheet of paper and some ink from my desk. I'll write him a letter in which I declare that I owe him a favour for services rendered, without giving any details. This should be enough to prove my goodwill, and if it doesn't suit him, it means deep down he never wanted to commit to this arrangement in the first place. We won't have any choice then but to use your methods. Very well, Majesty. I'll bring it to him right away. Thank you, Alden. I'm sorry to use you as a courier. It's beneath you. He gave an amused laugh. Oh, you'd be surprised, Majesty. This has often been my exact role. Thanks, Alden. I dozed off, seated at my desk, when someone knocked at my door once more and I woke with a start. So, Alden, how did it go? It seemed he had spent hours on the task, which was rather worrisome, but he had come back without the letter I had written. He accepted this compromise. For the time being, he doesn't want anything in particular, but I trust him to let us know when he's ready to claim his favour. And the party? It must be in full swing at this time of night. I don't know if his main goal was to harm you, but in any case, he had another excuse ready. He announced his engagement to a noble from Vargas, Dame Lilia, of Valentum. I I nodded with a sigh. I didn't know when this would all come back to bite me again, but at least the situation was under control. Thank you for your help, Alden. My pleasure, Your Grace. We'll continue to keep a close eye on him, but you can relax for now. Smiling, I nodded, aware that I was in dire need of sleep after so many strong emotions. Oh, day 10, 2 days later, huh? Damn. Your Grace, this is a little premature, but should you become Empress, you will need to manage the kingdom's policies. I'd like to make sure that you're ready for such a task. Oh, one can always learn more. Yes. As you already know, the kingdom's policies influence how your subjects, noble or otherwise, view you, but also what resources will be available to us. You can set tax rates for the people and the nobility. As you may have guessed, the higher they are, the less happy the people will be, but the faster the coffers will fill up. There are many other things, much more subtle. For example, you can decide how open to trade our borders should be, or which sectors of the economy you'd like to focus on. We must also consider how to protect ourselves from our neighbours, especially bearing in mind Vargas's warlike inclinations. But maintaining an army is very, very expensive. As such, investing in diplomacy may offer better results in the long run. And finally, we have to manage the priests. Their influence on the people is immense, and they have infrastructures all over the nation. Offerings made to them are never wasted. We've set up regular periods of time during which we collect earnings, but there will be a short delay before the consequences of any changes you make can be seen. The story alternates with phases of gameplay, which are triggered between two scenes. During these phases, you will be able, among other things, to modify your kingdom's general policies. Gains will be distributed at the end of the gameplay phase. Okay, is that clearer now? Yes, I understand. Even if it's all very theoretical. That's true, but the best way to approach the subject in a more concrete manner is to look into it yourself. Even if I'll only be doing the work after my coronation, may I try my hand at it now? I'm sure there are things that I'd like to change in my father's policies. Whoa. Okay. So, we have moderate taxes. The people will understand. We're going to keep that. Economy. We want to... Exploitation of raw resources. Negative to the 5. Plus 3 to goods. But we get money. This will give us more nobility. I think we should do farming. I want my people to like me. You will help finance a good part of the realm. Temples, okay. Trade. So far we can do... I think we should do free for a little bit. Army we're going to maintain. Diplomacy. I think we'll just keep it cordial. There we go. That sounds most excellent to me. Sweet. Oh, day 15. Your Grace, Your Grace. Dawn had barely risen when I heard a kerfuffle at the door, and I immediately recognized Robert's voice. Oh. Robert? Your Grace. I got up with a groan and quickly slipped on a dress, trying to make myself presentable before opening the door. High Priest, what's going on? I tried to remain as neutral as possible, but I was burning up with a mix of anxiety and excitement, because I had a solid guess as to what this was about. The Quadrator. He answered, Your Majesty. Nervous, he handed me 2 letters bearing the recognizable seal of His Holiness. Your name is written on them. I didn't dare open them, Your Highness. Exhilarated, I looked at the 2 pieces of paper that were about to seal my future. One seemed official, while the other was explicitly for my eyes only. I would have liked to be alone when reading them both, but clearly it had taken Robert all he had not to break the wax seal on the official letter, and he now stared at me impatiently. My throat was dry as I grabbed a paper cutter to open the correspondence. I took a sip of my water in anticipation. My heart was beating so fast I had the impression everyone in the room could hear it. Lady Lydia of Terranfol, daughter of Magnus V of Terranfol, the Fierce, Emperor of Chaldea. The 4 have spoken and have recognized you as the legitimate heir of the crown of Chaldea, by virtue of your blood and despite your gender. By this decree I convey the word of the gods. May your governance be respected by all the just and the pious. May your rule prosper and never stray from the 4's faith. Verma, Quadrator, by the grace of the 4. Praise be. I was shaking so hard I felt my legs give in, and I had to sit on my bed so I didn't fall over. I had done everything in my power to make this moment happen, but now that it was upon me, I was engulfed by all the emotions I had accumulated in the past week. Robert seemed to understand me, and he bowed to leave me a few long seconds so I could take in the Quadrator's words. Finally, he spoke up. "That's marvellous, Your Majesty. I knew the Four would acknowledge your legitimacy." Almost timidly, I nodded and tried to recover my usual composure. With the Quadrator's support, my coronation was sure to happen, but that didn't mean I was rid of my enemies. Or other contenders. I couldn't let my guard down yet. "Yes, the time has come for everyone to know the truth. Gather the nobles in the castle at dawn and prepare the pigeons." He nodded, a grave expression on his face. "Yes, we can't wait any longer. The secret of your father's death couldn't have been kept indefinitely. In any case." It was true that his absence had been going on for a while, and a possible illness worried people just as much as a possible death. It was fortunate that these letters hadn't taken too long to arrive. I'll be there. I need to finish getting ready." "Of course, Your Majesty. I'll have the bells rung. But at such an early time, I don't suppose we can gather everyone in less than an hour." I approved with a polite nod, and soon I watched him leave and close the door. Finally, on my own, I collapsed on the bed and let myself gloat. I whooped in pure childish joy as I read the Quadrator's letter over and over again. I knew that I had plenty of challenges ahead of me, but this was my first victory against traditions, and I intended to savor it for as long as I could. Only after a few long minutes had passed did I decide to open the second letter, which was addressed to me personally. Yeah, this one's what I'm worried about. "Lady Lydia de Terenfell, thank you for your generous donation to Meridian's great temple. Please know that I never forget my friends. I'm sure we'll get along marvellously. Verma, Quadrator by the grace of the Four." Happy with my decision, I sighed and carefully put the letter away into my desk. Pretty promises were easy to forget. I could perhaps use the parchment to remind him of his support one day, or to show to some reluctant noble just how popular I was with one of the most powerful men on the continent. In any case, I believe that my actions had managed to sway him, and I was quite proud of that. Now it was the court I had to sway, and I knew this wasn't going to be an easy task. Ooh, day 18.
"Make sure not to overexert yourself, Lydia. You're spending your days locked up in this office. You should get out a bit to clear your head. Come, take a walk with this old lady."
I had left the door open, and although I hadn't heard Marjorie come over to me, I wasn't surprised. Since her perfume, which she applied too liberally, had filled the room, I almost felt nostalgic for a moment. Contrary to what she seemed to suggest, I wasn't here for pleasure. I was overwhelmed. Invitations, solicitations, promises. I'd spent the last 3 days flattering Callidian nobility to ensure that nothing would interfere with the coronation in 3 weeks' time, and I still had a lot to do. "Oh, perhaps you can fool everyone else, but I know you're far from being an old lady, Marjorie." My reply made her laugh, a hoarse and joyous sound that belied what I had just said.
"Oh, I still have the same quick wit I had when I was 20. But I'm afraid my whining bones disagree with you, sweetheart. Come on, don't be cruel. You already broke my poor heart when you didn't let me in on the secret."
I put my quill down with a sigh and closed the inkwell, hoping its content would not dry out. She had taught me many things, and even if I had grown stronger than her in a few areas, it was obvious that she still used guilt like no one else. She almost made me feel bad for hiding my father's death from her. You know full well I didn't have a choice. The information had to be disclosed to as few people as possible.
I know, sweetheart, but I would have liked to be there for you. These past few days mustn't have been easy."
No, they weren't indeed. As promised, I quietly walked by Marjorie's side through the garden, but we couldn't take one step before some servant or noble offered me their condolences. I'm so tired of pretending to be sad.
"I know your father was a flawed man."
She paused, looking at me as she seemed to hesitate to say something. I looked at her, intrigued. There was so much contempt in her voice when she spoke of his flaws that she obviously knew something about him, something I probably didn't.
"But no matter what anyone says, he was your family, your blood. You shouldn't hate him like that. It's not healthy, especially now that he's dead."
I sensed from her tone that I'd get nothing more from her, at least not today, and I didn't insist, draping myself once again in my indignity. "No, that's too easy. You can't just die and expect that all your mistakes will be forgiven."
"It's not as if he chose to die."
"And so? It doesn't change anything." She sighed, and I decided to change the subject before I had to listen to another lecture on the importance of family bonds. "But since we're speaking of forgiveness, I need your help." Suspicious, she frowned, although she kept walking calmly between the flower beds. "I would like it if you gave me Fear Castle."
"I would like it if you gave me Fear Castle."
"That old dilapidated fortress? What for?" Pretending to admire some insects that were flying around the planters, I hesitated for a second. I needed the fortress to buy the Faram's loyalty, but Marjorie held a deep hatred for them. I didn't like lying to her, but I couldn't run the risk that she'd refuse my request. Tell her the truth, even if she won't like it. I need it because I'm going to give it back to the Faram. Upon hearing my words, Marjorie froze, trembling with anger.
You want to give it back to those vile traitors? Do you know how many men died storming it? Do you know what this fortress cost me?
I knew she would react that way. Even through the war. Even though the war had ended about 20 years ago, she still bore painful memories of it. Yes, I know all that, but it all took place before my birth. It's time we move forward and reconcile with the Faram, lest we repeat the mistakes of the past. I don't want another Faram revolt under my rule. I need their support for my coronation, and to obtain that support, I need Fear Castle. You know just as well as I do that it's only a ruin now, an old pile of rubble left on steep and barren land. It's nothing more than a symbol. My old aunt grumbled for a few long minutes, but she was forced to concede my point, even if it cost her. Do what you want. But believe me, once you become Empress, I'll call in the favor. Thank you, Marjorie. I knew I could count on you. Relieved, I finally let out the breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Knowing the affection Marjorie held for me, I knew that I'd end up convincing her, but as I had a meeting with the Faram heir in 4 days, I didn't have a lot of room for errors. With one less issue weighing on my heart, I continued my walk with a bounce in my step, forgetting for a few minutes the court's problems and plots. We're time jumping. Quite a bit. Oh. Hello. This was my first time ever meeting Theodore of Faram. There's so many Theodores today. I had heard him described as a cold and distant man, but I still didn't expect him to be so glacial. I waited for him to deign reply to my greeting, as courtesy demanded, but the silence between us was deafening. He only stood there, staring at me, impassive, without even so much as a good morning or a nice to meet you, while I had to keep smiling not to lose face. I had better things to do than engage in a staring contest. Consequently, I swallowed my pride and gestured to one of the chairs around the staff table, where a large map of Caladia had been laid out. I imagine you must be tired after such a long trip. Please sit down. I thought he was going to stay standing there, but he finally did sit down without another word, while I took a seat not too far from him. Like I said in my letter, I'd like for the Terranfell and the Faram to reconcile. The tensions between our two families have lasted long enough, and I imagine your sudden desire to make peace has nothing to do with your upcoming coronation. The Montiliet are eating out of your hand, but the Voldor will never support you, which means you very much need us. Coming as he was from a lineage with a somewhat barbaric reputation, he had done a fairly clever analysis of the situation, but I didn't let that stop me. Very much need is a bit strong. Should I remind you that I have the support of the Order, and by extension the Four? The people will follow me. That said, I do wish for my coronation to go as smoothly as possible, and the rest of my rule as well. I'd like to avoid bloodshed altogether if possible, and I fear that the ancestral enmity between our two families might lead us to just that. Neither you nor I were born when the Faram revolt took place. It's up to us to decide if we want to perpetuate the cycle of conflict, or if we want to build something new. He took on a thoughtful expression and observed me with renewed interest. It's easy for you to forget. You're on the side of the victors. You haven't been rehashing your resentments for 20 years. Precisely. Wouldn't it be easier for you to forget as well, especially if it's been haunting you for that long? Even if we were inclined to consider your offer of a reconciliation, how could we trust you? I won't give you a history lesson, but that revolt didn't happen for nothing. He was following me exactly where I was leading, and it took me some effort to repress a smile and keep a businesslike countenance. Firstly, I'm not the same person as my father or my grandfather. It's unfair to distrust me as a result of their actions. And secondly, I'm ready to make a gesture of goodwill, if the Faram are ready to make one as well. I'm listening. If you openly support my ascent to the throne, I'm ready to return to your family the Fair Castle, Citadel, and the lands that go with it. This time I savoured the true surprise in his eyes when I handed him the deed I had taken the time to prepare. As you know, it was confiscated after the revolt. Since it's located at a strategic crossroads between Terranfell and Montiliet, I thought it would be a strong gesture to return it to you, but also quite a symbol of trust. After glancing over the signed pledge, Theodore looked at me once more, with defiance this time. There's no doubt that my family will appreciate the gesture. I was already basking in my victory when he continued, his voice cold. But as for me, it only makes me see that you're one of those politicians ready to use every dirty trick in the book if it will give you what you want. I had been warned that you're the rightful heir of that snake who used to lead the Montiliet, but now I'm seeing it with my own eyes.
So yes, indeed, we will accept your offer and support your coronation, because unlike you, we stick to our word. But you should know that you're not fooling me. I will remain at the palace to make sure you don't stab us in the back as soon as you've achieved your goals. Ha! Scoffing. In the end, his analysis of the situation, or indeed of my character, wasn't as clever as I'd thought. I was ambitious, there was no denying that. I wasn't shy about it either, but my desire to make peace was just as sincere. Stay at the castle if you wish. Dukes are welcome here at any time, but you'll get eaten alive by the court if you always speak your mind so plainly, my lord. He shrugged condescendingly before getting up. Oh, I'm very capable of defending myself, Majesty. I just choose not to use the same venom as you do. That doesn't mean I don't know how to protect myself from its sting. No one liked being called a snake, but even if it was unpleasant to be treated with such hostility by someone to whom I had never done anything, I had gotten what I wanted. I didn't wish to risk making him change his mind by starting an argument. Time will tell. I do hope you'll change your mind about me, but as long as the Faram uphold their end of the bargain, you're free to think whatever you like. Please think good of me. I love your hair length and your face and your everything. I really like him. He's such a cool looking character. Don't say that as if you're doing me a favor, Your Grace. Even empresses don't have dominion over people's thoughts. And in order to keep me from having the last word of our pointless sparring, he immediately turned on his heel and slammed the door. Furious, I was engaged in deep breathing exercise when Alden walked in. How did things go with Theodore Faram? I shrugged with a sigh. I suppose it was all right. At least the Faram should support my coronation. That's all that matters. How about you? Did you manage to convince Leon? As you suspected, he's not inclined to support you. Apparently he and his brother fear that Calidia will become a second Assyria. I raised my eyes to the sky, not hiding my exasperation at these words, as if it were enough for a woman to lead the empire for us to become a matriarchy. Have you at least convinced him not to openly oppose the coronation? Yes. As you suggested, I implied that a civil war wouldn't be good for business, and that you were easier to manipulate. Was that enough? Yes and no. The man's smarter than I thought. He took this as an opportunity to claim the position of treasurer. Treasurer? Look at him go. Since he believes you're incompetent, he thinks that's the only way for him to ensure that the country stays on the right track, and that Waldor's economical interests are preserved. Upset, I bit my lips while I pondered the implications of such a nomination. I didn't want him to stand in my way at every council meeting, but there was no valid reason for me to refuse him this privilege either. I imagine before asking for that position, he encouraged the current treasurer to retire? That's correct. A pretty house by the seaside is waiting for him, and now he can't wait to be gone. I imagine we don't have a choice then. I'll summon Leon tomorrow and pretend to be a naive ingenue who's happy to let him take on big responsibilities. I sighed heavily and Alden stepped towards me with a discreetly amused smile. Are you sure you'll manage? Manage? Playing the easily influenced ingenue. I sighed, offering him a reassuring smile. It would not be fun having tea with such a conservative man, but there was nothing insurmountable about it. Don't worry about me. I can play dumb when I need to. I've spent my whole life appearing less dangerous than I really am. I should be able to pretend just this once. He might have some nasty surprises down the line, however. He nodded with a gleam of pride in his eyes. I trust you then. Thanks, Alden. Ooh, spring day 25. Your Grace, news of your nomination to the throne has spread quickly. We've received a letter addressed to you from the Queen Maeva of Assyria. My respects, Empress of Calidia. I wish to write to you so I could congratulate you on your recent nomination to the throne, as well as offer my condolences for your father's death. Assuming power is a heavy responsibility, but I have been told that you are very capable, and I know that Calidia is in good hands. Calidia and Assyria have always maintained solid diplomatic relations. I hope that they will continue, nay, prosper under your rule. Up until now, the matriarchs have always been opposed to non-commercial negotiations, but your nomination has made them curious. We dare to believe that in your presence, my emissaries and myself will cease to be subjected to the patronizing condescension that your predecessors invariably displayed, and that may my country's past rulers so wary of further interactions. I nearly got that perfect until that last word. Interactions. The gods whisper to me that your ascension to the throne signals the dawn of a new era for the continent. Therefore, I wish to support you as much as I can. With the matriarch's assent, I have decided to mandate an emissary, whose role it will be to liaise between our two nations. Her name is Asha Isabis. She is an exceptional woman, who I hope will be welcomed into your palace as she deserves. With all my sympathy,
Maeva, Queen of Assyria. Thanks, Maeva. That's wonderful news. I'll need as many allies as possible during my rule. Indeed, diplomacy is a delicate art, but it's fundamental for Calidia's prosperity. You need to woo neighbouring countries and ensure their goodwill towards us. Oh, the diplomacy's not available in the demo. No. But we'll talk about that later. For now, we have a coronation to organise. Damn. Look how pretty. The big day had finally come. Impatient and nervous, I paced my bedroom while checking my hair and my outfit for the umpteenth time. Nothing was easy as per usual. I was supposed to display poise, elegance, and grandeur, all while remaining humble. All right then. Despite all that, I felt ready and dignified, and I only waited to hear from Alexander, who would escort me, since my father wasn't in a state to do so. Hello. Time was passing by at an infuriatingly slow pace when finally he knocked and walked into the room. Clad in his ceremonial attire, that armour and the pompous cape that went with it didn't suit him, and I suppressed a smile when I saw him squeezed into it. Ready, Your Grace? Almost timidly, I nodded while he politely bowed to let me pass in front of him. Then he followed suit, respectfully walking one step behind. Her Grace, Lydia de Terenfell, Princess of Caladia, Duchess of Terenfell, Lady of Vermont, blessed by Basan. I closed my eyes and savoured this title that I was hearing for the last time. When the herald would announce me next, I would be Empress of Caladia. I didn't remember having ever seen the throne room this packed. Clearly, when I had been told that the entire castle had gathered here, it hadn't been an exaggeration. To try and hide my nervousness, I walked at a slow pace, my head held high, my eyes levelled at the throne. But my curiosity slowly got the better of me, and while I tried to remain as dignified as I could, I let my gaze wander discreetly in search of familiar faces. Alden, of course, stood right next to my throne, his face impassive, but his eyes bright enough that I could see the pride reflected in them. Robert was there too, my future crown already held in his hands. He did his best to appear as imposing as his function required him to be. In the nobles section, I recognized Leon of Waldeur, surrounded by his family, conversing with two other nobles who were vaguely familiar to me. With other nobles, I don't know why I specified two. To my surprise, I also spotted Theodore, leaning against a pillar, his gloomy aura seeming to hold people at bay so that he wasn't drowning in unknown faces. Hi, Theodore. As I passed by her, Marjorie gave me a smile, and I felt her perfume reach me, calming me despite its loud scent. Finally, the last step stretched before me, and I suddenly realized that I couldn't hear the crowd's hubbub anymore. The only sound was my heart beating in my temples. Ceremoniously, I knelt in front of this throne that was still forbidden to me. Soon I had cause to praise whomever had the brilliant idea to place a small cushion under my knees. The blessings were proceeding at an infuriatingly slow pace. I listened to them with only half an ear, but I still displayed my most serious and focused face to honour the solemnity of the ceremony. The day before, Robert had asked me if I wanted to celebrate tradition by taking the name of one of my predecessors, or if I'd rather start my own dynasty. I want to keep my name. Melisandre. I want to keep my name. I understood the importance of traditions, but I was much too proud of who I was to give up my name, my identity. I wanted to carry it with pride for as long as I would rule. I didn't know the sermon by heart, but I knew it would soon be ending, since the whole place seemed to grow livelier. With each passing second, both the crowd and Robert's voice vibrated with renewed excitement, until the key moment came. I closed my eyes and braced myself for the weight of the surprisingly light crown that he delicately placed upon my head. Rise up, Lydia the First de Terenfell, Empress of Caladia, first of her name, Duchess of Terenfell, Lady of Vermont, chosen by the Four and blessed by Basan. You shall bow no longer, since from this day and until your death, in the name of the gods, I entrust you with the charge of guiding your subjects and making Caladia shine bright for decades to come. Caladia. I should have said that in his voice, and I completely realized after the fact that that's what I should have done. Slowly I rose and turned around to sit on that throne that had been meant for me. Then I opened my eyes to look at the crowd. It suddenly went quiet, and an almost religious silence settled in for a few seconds. Long live Empress Lydia the First! Alexander's voice resounded next to me, oddly loud, and as it shattered this almost dreamlike moment, cheers arose from all sides in a spectacular chaos. The general enthusiasm was contagious, and I caught myself smiling and waving at the crowd with a bit too much vigor. Ooh! Evening. The party was in full swing, and if I was still beaming, my head was starting to hurt with the incessant solicitations of people come to pay their respects.
You should empty this glass into a flower pot and ask one of the servants to pour you grape juice instead.
Or maybe I had had too much wine. If I was being honest, I couldn't remember how many times my glass had been refilled. One thing I knew, it had never stayed empty. Even if Marjorie was probably right, I pouted. Come on, Marjorie, am I not allowed to have a bit of fun? It is my coronation day, after all. She shook her head with a tender smile.
You can't do this precisely because it's your coronation day, sweetheart. Some people might be subtler about it than others, but everyone is watching you and judging you.
She was right, and I knew it. I'd let myself relax perhaps a bit too much. Carried away by my enthusiasm, that acknowledgement didn't stop me from heaving a deep sigh of despair.
Well, I didn't come here to coddle you. I know you're perfectly capable of managing the situation. I just wanted to officially congratulate you. No one deserves this title more than you, and you'll make an incredible Empress.
Her face sparkled with pride and affection, and I felt my heart melt under her praise. Her opinion had always mattered a lot to me, and I felt myself go back to the little girl I once was, who always sought her approval. I hesitated for an instant, but finally I let myself gently hug her, making sure not to spill my glass on her in the process. Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you for everything. She kindly stroked my hair, and I stayed in her embrace for a few moments, just long enough to regain control of my emotions, which were threatening to make me cry. She gently patted my back to remind me of my duties, and I finally let go of her, my face now wearing a more neutral expression.
Go on, sweetheart. I won't keep you any longer. People are queuing to talk to you.
She was right. As much as they tried to hide it, many people stood nearby, waiting for an opportunity to pounce on me as soon as I'd be free. The quickest to the mark was a young woman I had never seen before. One look at the pretty dreadlocks she sported, decorated with small golden jewels, told me her background.
Magnificent coronation, Your Grace.
Her melodious accent convinced me I was right. I can't do that, and I flashed her a courteous smile. Thank you, Lady Asha, are you not? She seemed surprised for a second, then her face lit up. Well, I'm flattered you recognized me before I could even introduce myself. I don't know who spoke of me to you, but I do hope they said good things. She gave a small laugh as if to brush off this pleasantry, which I knew had a much deeper meaning. After all, I had indeed heard a lot about her, both from Queen Maeva, who had warmly recommended her to me, and from Robert, who had tried to paint her as an ungodly heathen and temptress the minute she had set foot in the capital. Of course, your queen keeps showering you with praise. Then allow me to return her kindness, and to tell you how fantastic Maeva is. She'll make a formidable ally. Her familiar way of talking about her ruler made me quirk an eyebrow, but I didn't mention it. After all, Assyrian customs were much different from ours, and her relationship with her queen was none of my concern. As long as she didn't use the same casual tone while talking about Khalidian nobility, there would be no issue. In any case, I do hope Khalidia is to your liking, Lady Asha. Fortunately, I still haven't had the time to visit your beautiful lands and to taste your many specialties. Therefore, the question may be a bit premature. She gave me a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes, which made me see that her answer was an elegant way to not speak ill of the place without lying. Now that it was my castle and my nation, it did upset me a little, but I couldn't be mad at her for finding the place a bit drab. My father had never had a keen eye for interior design. I was about to ask her more futile questions when Robert stepped into the space between us. The gesture was overtly rude, but his position allowed him to act in that manner, and I turned away from Asha to listen to what he had to say. Your Majesty, please forgive me for interrupting, but I must speak with you on a topic of the utmost importance. He barely hid the dirty look he gave Asha. She understood the message and gracefully curtsied. I'll go breathe some fresh air in the gardens if you'll excuse me, Your Majesty. I mentally took note of where to find her if I wanted to continue the conversation, and bowed to her in lieu of goodbye. Then I focused my attention on Robert, wondering with some trepidation if something bad had happened. What's going on? Don't worry, Your Majesty, nothing that will spoil your night. I just wanted to make sure that you were taking my warnings about the Assyrian diplomat seriously. I don't find her trustworthy at all. I had to hold back a sigh. It was quite distressing to see him go to such trouble only to interrupt my conversation with a foreign dignitary. Please be comforted. She wasn't inviting me to dance naked in the sea in honor of the snake goddess Sif. I had said that in a playful tone, hoping to lighten the mood, but he looked even more upset. You should take this issue at heart. These people are insidious. They seem nice, you let your guard down, and by the time you realize you've fallen into the trap of a witch, it's much too late. I didn't have the patience to hear more of this, and I took an offended expression. My faith for the four was sincere, and I was truly offended. I'd always relied on the gods, and I couldn't tolerate anyone implying that my convictions were unsteady, or that I'm so easily influenced, especially given the importance of the order within Khalidia. Shrouded in righteous anger, I gave Robert a withering look. Do you believe my faith could be so easily shaken, High Priest? Taken aback, he immediately softened and apologized profusely. I relaxed in turn. I'm taking note of your worries, and I promise I'll be careful, but you must also understand that you simply cannot say such things about a foreign guest, especially not in public. That this could have serious diplomatic consequences. He scowled once more, but didn't say a word, politely bowing instead. I understand, Your Grace. A short silence passed between us before he turned away, mumbling something about prayers he had to make. For the first time of the night, I found myself alone, and no one came to talk to me, perhaps for fear of getting caught in the fallout from this tense conversation. I enjoyed that respite and decided to go talk to... I want to talk to Theodore. Mr. Grumpy, yeah! He wasn't hard to spot, since he was nonchalantly leaning against a wall in the most deserted corner of the throne room, snubbing the drinks as well as the buffet, and looking damn good in that suit. A few ladies were ogling him, but they didn't dare come closer, and I could understand them. His gloomy face wasn't inviting me to chat with him either, but as Marjorie had reminded me, these kinds of parties weren't meant for my own enjoyment. They too were tools of the political game. It mattered to strengthen my bonds with the Faram, and even more, to show the court that our enmity was now in the past. Lost in his thoughts, he didn't seem to see me until I leaned back on the cool marble wall right next to him. The party isn't to your liking, my lord of Faram. If he was surprised, he didn't show it, and he raised his eyes to meet mine before scanning me from head to toe. I'm not particularly fond of these displays of vanity, no. That was certainly a take on things, but it didn't give me much room to react. I grew thoughtful as I considered what I should say, unsure how to communicate with someone this closed off. The idea struck me when I heard the tune of a waltz floating through the air. I immediately straightened up. You should invite me to dance. It was worth it, if only to see his stunned face. In fact, he seemed so shocked that his scowling gnome-like mask disappeared, making him look surprisingly fragile. I beg your pardon? You said it yourself. We're in the middle of a show, and appearances are everything. I can see that you're not willing to chit-chat, but people are watching us. Neither you nor I want the court to think that the crown and the Faram are still at odds. So shall we dance? That is, unless you don't know how to dance, of course. He hesitated, but my last comment seemed to tick him off, and he dryly dusted off his jacket. Of course I know how to dance. Well then, prove it. This time I didn't leave him a choice, and I curtsied as if I had just accepted his invitation. He looked at my hand with suspicion, as if simply touching it was going to burn him, but finally he took it and led me a bit farther toward the center of the room, where other guests were already dancing. Dancing! I was almost surprised to find his fingers pleasantly warm. His behavior was so cold that part of me expected his skin to be freezing, like that of a devilish creature. Out of curiosity as much as out of deference, we were given much more room than necessary, and other couples stepped aside or completely left the floor to observe us. My talents as a dancer were alright, but they weren't extraordinary. I felt nervous despite myself as I tried to keep my head high and my back straight, as dignified as possible. You're suddenly very tense for someone who threw a tantrum to be invited to dance. Of course, he had felt it, and his smile, sincere for once, showed that he had fun teasing me. That made me grumble, and it made Roishie happy. Just lead properly, will you? I heard a hint of a laugh while he waited for the right measure and slid into the dance with surprising fluidity. He wasn't lying. He knew how to dance, very well even. Despite his badly positioned hand, a bit too high, and not firmly enough to properly lead me, I could anticipate his movements with ease. He was a good guide, and his own gestures were precise and gracious. On the one hand, I was glad that everything was working out, but on the other, it bothered me a little to acknowledge his merits. I will compliment him. But I knew I must not let my pride dictate my behavior. I was here to strengthen our bonds, after all. Well, it seems you weren't bragging. You're an excellent dancer indeed, Theodore. My compliment seemed to catch him off guard, almost as much as my invitation to dance had. I felt him falter for a second, and he almost lost the perfect rhythm he had led us to so far. You're not so bad yourself. I knew this was the best I'd get out of him, and I smiled while he led me into a slightly stiffer twirl. Neither of us opened our mouths until the last measure played, and we finally separated in an elegant curtsy, under scattered applause. Well, I thank you for this moment, Theodore. I won't keep you busy any longer. I see you're having quite some success. Out of the corner of my eye, I glanced at the young ladies who had gotten closer and now waved their fans, while ostensibly ogling the Lord of Faram. Perhaps they had more respect for etiquette than I did, since none of them dared to accost him and openly ask for a dance. Still, he sighed and glared at me, apparently holding me responsible for the sudden attention he was receiving. I ruthlessly abandoned him to his admirers, and was surprised to see him play the part of the courteous gentleman after all smiles and polite comments. Clearly, I was the only one for whom he refused to make such an effort. Yep, rude.
Your Grace, as you surely know, an essential task that comes with your role as a ruler is to listen to your subjects' petitions. They've accumulated since your father's death, and even before, he was never very fond of that duty. Now that you've been crowned, you'll need to dedicate them a fair share of your time. It's especially important because the other advisors and myself have gotten used to lodging petitions on matters that require your attention but do not fit into the council's agenda.
Explain it to me. All of this is very new to me. I won't say no to further explanations.
Petitions are matters that require your informed judgment, whether they pertain to trials, grant requests, or other various issues. The other advisors and myself are usually tasked with submitting them, but we may also pass on requests coming directly from your subjects. I divide them into 2 stacks, urgent affairs and current affairs. Of course, urgent affairs must be attended to as soon as possible. I've added an exclamation mark to the stack for more clarity. As long as all urgent affairs haven't been dealt with, I won't give you any current affairs, so as not to distract you with futile matters. As with everything that requires your input, petitions may necessitate the mobilization of certain resources, but don't forget that they can also offer opportunities. Good decisions can turn out to be quite lucrative. Finally, you must keep in mind that improving the living conditions of your people will ensure their affection for you, and in the long run, will contribute to the realm's prosperity. Is that clear? Yeah, thank you. Perfect. I suggest that you deal with one of mine first. It's an issue that has been on my mind for a while.
He took a moment to rummage through the items on the table before handing me a sealed parchment roll.
Here you go. Well then, I'll let you study that on your own and go about your business. Feel free to go through more of them so you can grow familiar with the process. You will be informed of their outcome in due time.
Even if the crown is yours, I'd be wary of your bastard brothers. For some, an illegitimate son is far better than a woman, and I wouldn't want the nobility to use this excuse so they can get rid of you the first chance they get. I've tasked the Master of Murmurs with investigating them. At the moment, it seems that most of them live a modest life as craftsmen or servants, but the simplest minds can be the easiest to sway, especially since you haven't established any bond with them, which means that nothing will stop them from betraying you. I suggest dealing with this issue in a permanent way. Alden of Valblin. Valden? Well, I don't want to kill my brothers. No. As long as they haven't done anything to me, I refuse to let paranoia get the best of me and have them assassinated. I do recognize that my half-brothers are a threat, and I believe we should definitely keep an eye on them. I think I'll make them happy. Your half-brothers were pleasantly surprised by your offer. The twins only asked for a few more coins, and they praised your name. The other 2 have more specific requests. Aaron Villas asked for your permission to marry the daughter of a lord, Lila Delavallee, whose father is opposed to the marriage. That was above my pay grade, so I've submitted another petition on that topic with an in-depth explanation. Yassine Lecordonnier asked for your permission to come to the palace without mentioning what position he wanted to occupy. He'll look over the details with you once he's here. Time will tell if your kindness is rewarded. I hope so. Oh, petitions. Your Grace, forgive me for bothering you with such trivial matters, but I am in need of your impartial wisdom. 2 farmers from my village, Gwethanok and Ropas, who own adjoined land, have been harbouring a burning hate for each other for years, but as of late their scuffles have escalated to a troubling extent. Ropas has just poisoned all of Gwethanok's goats. He claims that he did so in retaliation of his neighbour's actions. The latter appears to have deliberately led his goats to his neighbour's field so they could graze on it and destroy part of the harvest. During his interrogation, Gwethanok claimed in turn that he was taking revenge for the destruction of a fence, and so on and so forth. Never ends. It's impossible for us to determine who started the fight, and the tension showed no sign of subsiding. Fadila, our priestess, has tried many times to act as a mediator, but to no avail. My sermons are just as useless. We've tried appealing to our Lord's justice, but he's been away from his lands for a few months now. It is out of desperation that I dare bother you, Majesty. I am convinced that you alone have the authority required to instill some common sense in these 2 idiots. May the Fall protect you. Harzak, Mayor of Osborne. Find the local lord. Doesn't matter who started these childish squabbles, they're both at fault for escalating them. Tell the maid to punish them both. Perhaps spending some time in prison together will help them see eye to eye. Your Grace, I have done as you asked. Fuck! Indeed, it seems that during their time in jail, Rapace and Guthanok have found common ground, their resentment towards you. I started fearing that their grudge might lead them to try and cause you harm, and I have kept a close eye on them. However, I can assure you that their ludicrous plots are nothing for you to worry about. At least they've made up, and their farms have never been more flourishing. 1,000 thanks, Your Grace, for taking the time to shed your wisdom on this affair. May the Fall protect you. Yes, well, now the people don't like me anymore. Oh, events not available in the demo. Okay, well, let's do politics. All right, well, yes, we'll do that so I can get some people to like me again, because I got -5. I was truly glad to be Empress now, but as I had expected, I hadn't had a single moment to myself since my coronation. There was an endless and continuous stream of people paying their respects to me, and of more or less futile issues to solve. Even if I was happy to finally be able to exercise my power legitimately, I also felt that I needed a break. Thus, after taking care of the most urgent matters, I had decided to take a moment to relax in... Oh, I want to go to the library. I mean, the library is my safe space. I had always appreciated the serene atmosphere in that place. It seemed like the ideal spot for a break. It was the place I was going to choose anyway, and then, Theodore was just going to be there, so... Well, as long as I didn't get tangled up in books of military theory. Knowing myself, I was very capable of falling into that trap and staying here until midnight, taking notes. It was best if I restrained myself to picking a novel or some poems, even if books of either sort were scarce. That way I could truly let my thoughts run free. After all, it had been a while since I had last read. I want a good adventure novel. Yes, it had been too long since I had last read a novel with epic battles, like Beard Blue's Song. How many times had I devoured that book in my younger years, before my age forced me into more academic pursuits? I missed it all. The idea of my upcoming read put me in a good mood, but I stopped dead in my tracks when I spotted Theodore engulfed in a book. Ever since we had met, every time we saw each other, I felt his gaze on me, studying me with severity, as if he was Myriad himself come to judge me and decide upon my spot in heaven. In fact, I had gotten so used to seeing his dour and scowling face that I was surprised to find him looking quite serene. In truth, when his features went puckered up in sternness, he was rather elegant. For once, he looked at ease, and I didn't have the heart to bother him. Since I had come there myself in search of some peace and quiet, I decided to leave him alone. With all the softness in the world, I tried to close the door behind me, only to hear the blasted thing creak as if I had opened the hatch to hell. Disturbed in his reading, Theodore lifted his nose from his book and stared at me, his expression immediately turning into a frown. "Hello, Your Grace." Holding back a sigh, I approached him with a polite smile. "Hello, my lord of Faram." Now that I had been spotted and he had greeted me, I might as well stay and chat. Even if we had found an agreement, I was still wary of Faram's intentions as regarded my throne. It couldn't hurt to learn a bit more about him. The book that had fascinated him seemed to offer a perfect topic of conversation, but I couldn't read the letters engraved in the leather from where I stood. "What is this book you're so deep into?" He abruptly closed the book and placed it on his knees in such a way that I absolutely couldn't read the title. "That's none of your business." His attitude was exasperating, but I chose to give him a teasing smile. "Oh, were you by any chance reading an indecent book?" Everything in my tone suggested I was joking, but he seemed to take it quite badly and sat upright, his expression upset. "It is very improper of you to suggest such a thing." "It's very improper of you to have so little sense of humor." "My sense of humor is perfectly intact." "So you're questioning my etiquette?" "I never said anything of the sort." "But what if I did?" I took a deep breath and held back the scathing retort about to escape my lips. After all, I was the one who had started this conversation, hoping to smooth our relationship, even if I would have paid good money to see him lose that superior and smug expression he liked to display. "In any case, it makes sense that you'd still have things to learn. You weren't ready for this." He said that nonchalantly, almost sympathetically, and I couldn't tell if he was trying to be friendly or if it was yet another elaborate provocation. In any case, he had managed to rile me up. "I beg your pardon?" "You heard me. Stop acting as if you're a powerful heir who can carry the entire nation on her shoulders." "I'm not a fool. You've been kept away from the court for half of your life. In truth, you don't have the slightest clue of the mess you've gotten yourself into. You've led a privileged life without any difficulties away from the plots and issues of your kingdom. Now that your father is dead, you've taken the first chance you've had to steal his crown like a vulture. I'm sure the throne was still warm when you decided to sit on it." He wasn't wrong about that last point, but I couldn't tolerate his half-baked insults any longer.
Be careful with your words, Theodore. You're getting dangerously close to royal treason. My father was assassinated abruptly. I didn't have the luxury to hesitate, and I was only fulfilling my duties. Although I was seething inside, I had to stay firm and to make sure not to raise my voice too much, which would only have discredited me. Your father was assassinated because he was greedy for power, because he was cruel, and because over time he had made too many enemies to count. You are his flesh and blood. What could possibly convince me that you are not like him? That you are truly acting out of duty? Was that the crux of the issue? He thought I was like my predecessor? The simple idea of it made me nauseous. Have you met him at least? I seriously doubt that. If that were the case, your insolence would have had you thrown in prison on the spot. That you're not in a cell right now should be enough to demonstrate the difference between my father and I. But I imagine it'll be hard for you to believe me, whatever I say. It's extremely difficult, even impossible, to make someone who's already formed an opinion change their mind. I'll admit I'm disappointed in you. I thought you were an educated man, but clearly you're backwards enough to judge me on the blood that flows through my veins rather than on my actions. As for my privileged life, what do you know of it? You've never been a woman in a world ruled by men, an empress in a world of kings. Your beloved son, destined from birth to become the head of your family. On the other hand, I've been kept away from my birthright, and I had to fight to get even the tiniest sliver of power, and now you dare tell me I'm privileged? Well, you are privileged. I'm just gonna say it, but hey. Potato, potato. I had managed to keep my composure, but anger and sarcasm vibrated powerfully in my voice, and that appeared to shut him up. She's not privileged because she's a woman. I'm just saying she's privileged because she's a empress. Yeah, okay. I think you're feeling threatened by my rule, but if this can make you feel better, right now I don't intend to waste my energy on people who already have everything, especially not on account of resentment that predates my birth. The changes I make, I will make them for my people, for the farmers who work my lands, for the women and children who will forge the future of the empire. Reminding myself of my own convictions calmed me down a bit, and I felt my body relax while I continued. Think what you like, but I never wanted that crown. I know what it can do to people. Nevertheless, my mother always taught me that as a noble, you have a responsibility towards others, and that's why when I realized that this was my destiny, I always prepared myself as best I could to take that place with dignity. You think I'm naive, that I believe ruling is easy, even though wearing the crown still won't stop people like you from questioning my legitimacy? I know it's hard, Theodore, because things have never been easy for me. You clearly know nothing of my life, and yet you don't hesitate to criticize it. Before you presume to tell me I have a lot to learn, you should consider expanding your own knowledge. Even if I had calmed down, I still felt out of breath, and my heart beat too loudly in my chest. Rather proud of my tirade, I was going to gracefully turn around and leave him there, astounded, but he recovered much faster than I had thought. With a peaceful gesture, he had put down the book he had been holding on his knees onto the table. Then he got up so he could better take a bow. I may have underestimated the hurdles you've had to overcome and the efforts you've had to make. I hadn't expected him to admit he was wrong, rather than attacking me again, and I stayed quiet. Things haven't been as easy as you've implied for me either, Majesty. Life in Shahir is harder than you think. But I suppose it would be hypocritical of me to act offended now. His tone had softened, but I was still on the defensive. Nonetheless, I tried to make my voice sound as neutral as possible. You suppose right. I believe in hard work, in what is earned through sweat and tears. Even if I'm still unsure of your abilities, you're right. I should at least give you a chance to prove your worth. I'll rule with dignity because that is where lies my duty as an empress, not because I believe I have anything to prove to anyone, especially to you. Of course. Since I didn't want to throw fuel on the fire, I didn't reply, and he bowed before leaving the library, accompanied by the insufferable creaking at the door. Damn, I came here to read a fucking book. Your Grace, I have discovered that someone has placed pagan talismans in the palace. One was even found in your living quarters. I do not think that these amulets hold any sort of power, but the intentions are quite real. I cannot bear the thought that someone wishes to curse you. With the Master of Members' help, we have identified the servant behind these talismans. We have, however, stayed discreet. We will await your orders before we take action. This could give us an opportunity to learn more about the situation. That was the general. Maybe this one? You're right, we can't let this opportunity. Yeah, we'll spy on her.
We are actively keeping an eye on Miranda, but for the time being we have not learned anything. Apart from a few ridiculous and harmless rituals, her life is just as mundane as it is boring, and she does not seem to be meeting with other pagans or actively working to bring about your downfall. Thank you, Master of Murmurs. I want to do another petition. Your Grace, this won't be an easy task, but I'd like to suggest a modification of the current inheritance law, in use since Magnus I. The goal would be to simplify it and avoid potential bloodbaths in the absence of a male heir. Taking inspiration from the rather vague rules of the First Kingdom of Terranfell, which had allowed Melisandre to become queen, I suggest changing the law so that the firstborn of the family becomes the heir, regardless of their gender. There's no doubt that such a big change might not please everyone, but I do think that in the long run this would only benefit Caladia. Alden! I like the second one. Yes. A few nobles gnashed their teeth. I got -10 ability when they saw these changes, but since they're still able to elect their sons, they only bared their fangs on principle. Overall, I believe the law has been well received. Many people have recognized that indeed it'll help avoid useless and bloody succession wars. It's been well received, but I have -10 nobility. Okay. Spring, day 52, afternoon. The days pass by in a blur, all similar to each other. New petitions to manage, new events to participate in, influential people to flatter. I had never had any illusions. I had always known that my life as an Empress would be mainly paced by paperwork and diplomatic discussions, but sometimes it got a bit much. I knew the decisions I was making could change lives and minds, and I hoped that under my rule my kingdom would prosper, but I couldn't see the results of my hard work after a mere few weeks. I had to settle for little victories, and sometimes I caught myself hoping for something, anything to disrupt my day. Unfortunately, nothing seemed to be on the cards. Your Grace, would you have a few moments to spare me? Startled out of my daydreaming, I looked at the unfinished letter in front of me and pushed it aside to give my full attention to the Master of Murmurs, who removed his hood after closing the door. Of course, I'm all ears. Today a wandering caravan coming from Vargas was attacked by bandits. While they were crossing the Elm Bridge, the merchandise was stolen, the guards were killed, and the people in the caravan are now being held hostage to be ransomed. By the Four, that's awful. I was now used to be the one who must find solutions, and I immediately started going through them in my mind. That bridge is a strategic location. It should have been better protected. We'll send men over there, and I'll ask Marjorie to send hers as well. Her men are closer by. They should be able to secure the area and limit the disruptions to that heavily trafficked commercial road. And put a bounty on those bandits. We have to find the hostages and deal with their captors as decisively as possible. Patiently he let me finish, but as I saw his expression I realized there was more to it, and I frowned. Is there something in particular that I should know about this caravan, Master of Murmurs? Softly he nodded. Among the captured people is one of my agents, a master of spying and infiltration. He had been in Vargas for a few months to keep an eye on a family of nobles, and he was urgently coming back with some vital information. Does that have to do with my father's assassination? Do you think Vargas is guilty of it? No. At first glance, there's no connection. Your father's assassination is still under investigation, even if I have to admit that at the moment we're somewhat stalled. Then what is this about? That's precisely the issue. I don't know. Apparently it was crucial information. My agent has always been excessively prudent. He feared that his mail might be intercepted, and therefore he was reluctant to send me written information, even if our messages are always coded. So you're telling me that one of our spies who infiltrated Vargas has been captured not too far from the border while he was coming back with information of the utmost importance, and that you have no clue what that is? Finally, now that the Four had decided to grant my wish of a little more excitement, I started regretting wishing for it in the first place. The situation didn't bode well. That's correct. Like you, I do find this coincidence suspicious. But we can't be sure of anything. If they just wanted to cover their tracks, they could have simply killed him right there and then, as well as the guards. Maybe they just got rid of the body. We can't exclude that possibility. But we've received a demand of ransom addressed to his family, like the other 4 hostages. I don't know. Well, in any case, we have to clear up the situation quickly. Do you have any other agents stationed in Vargas who could try to learn what our spy knows? A few, yes, but I'm afraid that they won't be discreet enough if they were to approach the same people. The decision is yours to make. Fuck it. I'm gonna save real quick. Save. It's far too dangerous. I know it's dangerous, we still have to try. Very well, Your Majesty. I'll order them to follow the same tracks as the agent, but he had been there for months. I doubt they can obtain quick results. I know, but if this information was crucial, we don't have a choice. We have to try. I understand. And for the bandits, what shall we do? I took the time to think and weigh my options before making a decision. Do we have any information whatsoever on these bandits? If they are who they pretend to be, they've been active all over the territory and and always follow this pattern, but we know little about them. For the time being, we have no idea of their whereabouts or who their leader is. Are they trustworthy? I mean, once the ransoms have been paid, will they truly release the hostages? So far, yes, they've kept their word. We can't continue letting these bandits live on our lands. Even if they're known for being trustworthy, I absolutely do not trust them. Very well, Majesty. I'll go talk to Alexander and prepare an ambush. We'll keep you appraised of the situation's evolution. Yay! I'm making choices. I'm sovereign. Your Grace, even though it had been carefully planned, I regret to inform you that our ambush was a failure. The bandits were well prepared, and when they spotted us, they started killing the hostages and running away. Fuck! Fortunately, your agent is very resourceful, and he managed to escape. I'm bringing him back to the castle right as I'm writing this report. One of the bandits is dead, but the rest of the group managed to flee. I desperately want to make them pay for their actions and pursue them, but the agent claims that his information is urgent and vital. You must absolutely meet him as soon as possible, Your Grace. Alexander. Shit. Unable to sleep, I got up to take in a bit of fresh air at the window. As much as I told myself there was no point in speculating before I got the spy's report, I couldn't stop the foreboding I felt. And I was about to be proved right. Oh, what? Damn it! Right as it gets to the good part. Thanks for playing Imperial Grace demo. We hope you had a good time. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord to follow the creation of the game in real time and talk with the team and community. This is so fun. I was having a fantastic time. I am so keen to play the rest of this game. Like, I had an amazing time. I just love getting to feel like I'm like a strong, powerful woman, and I get to make all the choices, and it's well written as well, which I appreciate. I'm intrigued about the characters. I feel like I need a little more time with them to fully understand them. But so far, very intriguing. The world building is great. Yeah, this has been Imperial Grace. If this looks interesting to you, I implore you to go and play the demo for yourself. You can download it now. Like I said, this has a planned release date for sometime 2026. It is developed by Synstoria, published by Abiding Bridge, and this was just really, really freaking fun. You can go and make different choices that I did, talk to different people, find different paths that I failed to find. And go and enjoy it, because this was really fun. I had a lot of fun. I love the art style. I also like the way that they do the like comic book strip inserts to show different actions like the characters are doing. I find that really well done. I'm very excited to see more of this game. Next year's looking good for visual novel style games. But as you can hear, my voice is struggling. I'm going to go and take a break because I really think I need to if I'm going to have any hope of still having a voice for the rest of this week. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I hope I did some form of justice. At least I tried. I know it wasn't perfect, but we're still here. Also, don't forget to use hashtag #ChooseWiselyFestival to go and look and see some of the other content creators who are making content for this festival. Go and check out all the games that will be highlighted on Steam, and just, get involved. Go try out some games for yourself and have a good time. Make sure you get behind a lot of these indie developers for these games, because it's the small devs and the people who are passionate that make the games industry and community thrive. It really, really is. Because there would be no games without the passion of there would be no games and no great games without the passion and commitment of the people behind it. That's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you get to play many, many wonderful games. I hope you get to rule many, many wonderful kingdoms. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.